Muammar Gaddafi. You have heard of him, the man who wanted to unite Africa, the man that they call a terrorist. Some people call him a savior. Some people call him the god of destruction. Some people call him the one that was supposed to unite Africa. But who was he? What was he doing? And what did he do? This is the story of Gaddafi. The story of the most eccentric dictator in modern history does not start in a palace. It starts in a goat hair tent in the blistering Libyan desert. Born to nomadic Bedouin parents, Gaddafi grew up despising the Western colonial powers that had carved up Africa. He didn't just want to be a soldier, he wanted to be a revolutionary. In 1969, at just 27 years old, a young, handsome Gaddafi led a group of junior military officers in a stunningly swift coup against King Idris of Libya. It was entirely bloodless. In less than 2 hours, a handful of soldiers abolished the monarchy and handed the keys of the country to a man who would not let them go for 42 years. He immediately set out to prove he was not your average politician. He didn't want to be called a president. He titled himself the brotherly leader and guide of the revolution. Gaddafi was a walking theatrical performance. He surrounded himself with an elite, highly trained security force made up entirely of women, famously known as the Amazonian Guard. When he traveled to Western countries, he refused to sleep in five-star hotels, choosing instead to pitch a massive bulletproof Bedouin tent on the lawns of foreign capitals. It sounded like a joke to the West, a flamboyant desert king wearing colorful robes and dark sunglasses. But back home in Libya, his iron grip was no laughing matter. He published the Green Book, a strange political manifesto that rejected both capitalism and communism, declaring his own system as the only true path. Dissent was ruthlessly crushed. Public hangings of university students who dared to protest were broadcast on state television. He was erratic. He was terrifying. But he was sitting on an ocean of high. By the late 20th century, Libya had transformed. Under Gaddafi's strict socialist policies, the oil wealth was suddenly pumped directly into the country. The numbers were staggering. Education became entirely free. Healthcare was free. Electricity was practically free. Newlyweds were given massive government stipends to buy their first homes. Libya had zero national debt, and the country boasted the highest standard of living in all of Africa. But Gaddafi's ambitions were much larger than Libya. He began looking south, heavily funding independence movements across the continent. He envisioned a United States of Africa, a single massive continental superpower with one passport, one military, and most importantly, one currency. This was the gold dinar. Gaddafi proposed a plan to stop selling African oil in US dollars and euros. Instead, he wanted to create a pan-African currency backed by the massive reserves of solid gold sitting in the Libyan central bank, estimated at over 140 tons. If African nations demanded gold for their resources, it would instantly shift global wealth, permanently crippling the dominance of the American dollar and the European banking system in the global south. To millions across the continent, he was a savior, an anti-imperialist hero who was finally going to sever the chains of Western financial control. But to the power brokers in Washington, Paris, and London, this eccentric man in the desert had just become the most dangerous man on the planet. He wasn't just a political nuisance anymore. He was a direct threat to the global financial order. Gaddafi's grand vision came with a fatal flaw. He believed his own myth. He was so insulated by his immense wealth and yes men that he failed to realize the growing resentment inside his own borders. Decades of brutal secret police tactics, political assassinations, and absolute dictatorship had created a pressure cooker. In February 2011, the Arab Spring swept across the Middle East, and the spark ignited in Benghazi, Libya. Protests over corruption and a lack of freedom exploded into the streets. Any other leader might have seen the writing on the wall and negotiated an exit. Instead, the brother leader doubled down. He went on state television, looking frantic and enraged. He refused to step down, violently vowing to hunt the protesters, inch by inch, room by room, home by home, alleyway by alleyway. He called his own citizens rats and claimed they were hallucinating on drugs slipped into their coffee by Western spies. He deployed his military against unarmed civilians. But the moment his tanks began firing into residential neighborhoods, the international community had the exact excuse they needed. The United Nations authorized a no-fly zone, and NATO launched a massive, devastating air campaign against Gaddafi's forces. French and American jets shattered the Libyan armored divisions. The NTC, a heavily armed rebel faction, pushed toward the capital. Gaddafi's 42-year illusion of total control vanished in a matter of months. The King of Kings was forced to flee his compound in the dead of night, leaving his empire to burn. By October 2011, Gaddafi's world had shrunk from the opulent palaces of Tripoli to a few dusty, battle-scarred safe houses in his hometown of Sirte. The man who wanted to unite a continent was now hiding in the dark, commanding phantom armies over a single satellite phone. Above ground, NATO jets hammered the city, and rebel forces tightened a suffocating perimeter. Realizing the end was hours away, Gaddafi attempted a desperate breakout. A heavily armed convoy of his remaining loyalists sped out of the city, but there was nowhere left to run. A French fighter jet and an American Predator drone tracked the movement. Missiles rained down, scoring direct hits on the convoy. The explosion was blinding, crippling the vehicles and turning the escape into a chaotic nightmare of twisted metal and smoke. Gaddafi and a few bodyguards abandoned the burning cars and ran for cover in the debris. Rebel fighters, swarming the area, began searching the ruins. They found him, the self-proclaimed King of Africa. The man who held the world economy hostage was found hiding inside a literal concrete drainage pipe under a highway. What followed was a total primal collapse of dignity. The man who had terrorized his country for 4 decades was dragged out into the harsh sunlight, bloodied, disoriented, and terrified. He pleaded with the young rebel fighters, asking, "What have I done to you?" He was paraded through the streets he once owned and executed in the dirt. His personal gold-plated pistol was held up as a trophy. He was buried in a secret, unmarked grave in the desert to ensure no shrine could ever be built to his memory. The 42-year dictatorship did not end in triumph. The grand dream of a united Africa died in a muddy ditch. And as the sun went down on the Jamahiriya, it left nothing behind but ash, fire, and chaos.